Can you believe it? It is the 1-year anniversary of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 releasing worldwide, and what a wild ride this was. Ever since the game released we got constant hype and merch even up until now. I think as Xenoblade fans we have never been eating this good before. It's amazing. We got the game and all its DLC that includes Future Redeemed, which is a whole nother level of fantastic. We got Mio figures announced, and after 3 years of waiting, the Nier figurine also finally released. We got special edition soundtrack releases, we got Xenoblade icons on the Switch after 7 years of waiting, we got Pyra and Mithra amiibo, and let's not forget all the amazing fan art and fan merch. An absolutely phenomenal year that will be forever ingrained into my mind. And all that started 1 year ago when Xenoblade 3 released. Today, I want to take a look back at Xenoblade 3 specifically and what it means to me. In the background I will have some B-roll footage so that you can listen to this without looking at the screen. This video will also contain spoilers for the whole game and even future redeemed spoilers. So let's jump into it. Let's jump into me reminding you all that this is a very new and small channel, so I really appreciate every comment and like immensely. Thank you so much for all the support, and I would love if you would chain attack that sub button for me as well. Where to begin? I feel like it's appropriate to tell you my experience and how I felt when I first got the game. The pre-release hype of this game was insane. We got the hints of a new Xenoblade game releasing as early as 2021, with Melia's voice actress letting some hints through. After the initial trailer and all the follow-ups, it was just a hype train till the end. It was my first time actually really being in the full hype cycle. My first Xeno was X, where I followed the pre-release stuff as well, but it never was that crazy. Xenoblade 2 kinda had a better hype cycle, but I never knew how much the series would mean to me after the game's release. But for Xenoblade 3, I was fully immersed. Sadly, I think this might have impacted my first playthrough at some points that I will address later. But I wouldn't trade this experience with anything else. The game actually leaked a week early or so, and it was super difficult to avoid everything, so I got spoiled on some stuff there as well. But then, the time had finally come, and Xenoblade 3 released. The introduction to Aionios feels super different than anything before. We only get a few seconds of Noah as a child in front of a clock tower before time stands still and seemingly the two universes collide. Then we get a huge time skip to when we are fighting a war against an enemy army. I guess the first gameplay thing to address here is how smooth the battles seem. The dynamic music and the seamless cutscenes to the battle transitions are phenomenal. Also, we need to address one of the major critique points for Xenoblade 2 that was fixed. Tutorials are actually good. But maybe they went a bit too far with overcorrecting here. Tutorials later on force you to go to the menu and equip every single party member separately. Like, we get it. I think they need to take a small step back in the next game, and if Future Redeemed is anything to go by, it will be fine. The battle system is the cleanest one we have, a combination of Xenoblade 1 and 2's combat. Early on, Keves arts are actually bad though. They have very long cooldown timers, while Agnos arts regenerate with each successful hit. Thankfully, after unlocking more art slots and fusion arts, it becomes less of a problem. Huge shoutouts to early game without the art of flow skill, by the way. I know not a lot of people will agree with me here because they would want to cancel arts into arts from the beginning, but I really like how the early game only allows you to cancel arts into fusion arts or your talent arts. This way you can use an art to a fusion art to another art and then ends on a talent art. I really love how it made the combat strategy a bit more important. Also, let's talk about classes. One of the best implementations for switching up the gameplay styles. I really loved switching classes and still trying to balance the whole team. It is very well implemented. But let's talk about something controversial. People wanted to be able to switch characters mid-battle since Xenoblade 1. I think it adds nothing to the battles. I mostly stick to the one character I want to control and only switch to a healer once in a while when they are not doing a great job. This ability would have been so useful and amazing in a game like Xenoblade 1 where team play was more important, but in Xenoblade 3 the team AI basically does everything for you. They break, topple, launch, smash, daze, burst completely on their own without any of your input. The healers do mostly a good job at healing and defenders already do the most they can do with aggro. Switching really isn't that important at all, because even if you switch, the arts that were already used will be unavailable. If you want to build them up again just to use them, you could have just let the AI do it as well. And that all may be connected to the fact that there are actually 6 characters plus a hero in the battle at all time. It sometimes feels like an auto battle with little input from you. I don't think the system is bad, it's just not my favorite. I also think Future Redeems handles this a bit better with having exclusive reaction arts on specific characters, but don't get me wrong, the battle system is super fun and an amazing fusion of both combat systems from... Okay, so chain attacks. I really like how they tried doing something new with chain attacks. Having the different effects for healers, defenders and attackers was a great idea. I think they can drag on a bit too long, and in the endgame you basically stick to the same strategy and characters, but still, being able to break topple combo is amazing and broken. I think it's kinda sad that every chain effect stays the same even with the different classes. It makes chain orders such as Mio's really unusable. Also, some heroes are really broken for chain orders, which limits which hero you want to take along. I think literally every complaint I have about the chain attacks is fixed in Future Redeemed though. Being able to change chain orders and chain effects was exactly what I needed. Well, every complaint was fixed except one. The chain attack music. Listen, I love the theme as much as the next one, but I'm not using chain attacks in bosses ever again if you're gonna do me like this. We got all the updates and there's still no toggle for the chain attack theme. Actually extend that complaint to the menu theme as well. I revisited Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2 after playing Xenoblade 3, and not having the background music rudely interrupted by a menu theme was a blessing. Once again, they should not remove it. Just give us the option to toggle it on and off. Let's stick with the music for the next part. Can you believe that this game lost Soundtrack of the Year at the Game Awards? It was a robbery at broad daylight. The music in this game is not only godlike, it actually plays an important part in the story. There isn't a single battle theme here that I don't like. These are all absolute bangers. Huge shoutouts to the Kevis Castle battle theme that you are hearing right now. One of the most underrated songs in the game. But even the Agnes battle theme that you will hear so much throughout the later parts of the game is completely underrated, because the best part only happens like 3 minutes into the battle. I've seen a lot of people say that the background music for areas are a low point, but I highly disagree here. They are not as bombastic and fantastic as the past Xenoblade games, that's true. And just like the battle themes, they take a long time to actually develop, but if you listen closely, these are some amazing bangers. And how can anyone sleep on the awesome Sword Valley and Machina Village remixes here? God, this is so good. The first time I heard that, I started tearing up. I honestly wish there were some Xenoblade 2 songs remixed here as well. Also, a lot of you probably only listened to half of the OST, to be honest, because for some odd reason they decided that fast traveling would always change the time to morning. So most of you only heard the day themes for many areas. Once again, this was fixed in Future Redeemed, thank God. Thankfully I realized it soon enough and always changed the time as well when I had to fast travel. Not that I fast travel a lot, I actually love exploring this world. So many references and Easter eggs. But one thing I noticed very early in the game is that they put way too many invisible walls. I guess that's the compromise for having such a big and interconnected world that doesn't let you skip story stuff. But honestly I think it could have been implemented a bit better with strong enemies blocking the path instead of invisible walls. I think the game only opens up after chapter 3, but when it does, holy moly. The Faunus and Pentelas regions have some amazing optional sites to discover, but Cardencia is where the game peaks in more than one way. You have traversed 4 huge areas at this point. If you are like me, you probably spent 120 hours in this game already doing all the side quests and stuff. And when the story is at the high point, you reach the city, which is a huge side quest hub, and then they literally throw you into the biggest open area in the game. You get a boat and are free to explore so many islands. It's an unforgettable moment for me, a mini Wind Waker inside of an already massive game. But the hype doesn't stop there, because this is actually where the story peaks as well. So let's get into the last section here, the story of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I already talked about how amazing the beginning to this game truly is. The moments we get with Noah's thoughts and how he figures out to fight against Mio is honestly one of my highlights. Sadly, I feel like scenes like this will get a backseat later on. But I also already talked about how handholdy it is for the first 4 chapters. Real side quests in Affinity really only opens up after you freed Colony 4. The early interactions of your party members is a highlight, of course. 2 enemy factions forced to work together, slowly gaining each other's trust. I love how fast Lance and Senna got along because of their 15 TP brain. Also, Tyon and Uni hating each other's guts was also funny to see. At this point, the threat of Mobius was still intact and real, so when Console K showed up, it was amazing. His delivery on the boo line was really on point. Oh yeah, I probably should mention it, the English dub of this game is absolutely fantastic. Every single character does an amazing job and is super memorable because of it. Uni will forever remain the boss, Senna will always be the yippie girl, but honestly, the one who steals the show for me, personally, is Lance. I think this is actually an unpopular opinion, but I don't understand why. Jack Bardot literally has the best deliveries as Lance in this game. The scenes where he is funny are perfect, but especially the scenes where he is conflicted about Yoren are absolutely 100 out of 10. I will give the other top 3 voice acting spots to Anne and Nia. Especially with Nia trying to be royal but being unable to hold her personality back. Amazing job. So after Colony 4 we get the mandatory Valdi side quest that honestly destroyed the Mobius reputation faster than Mio can run. See, I don't even remember the console's name because after this it will become very clear that there are just way too many to actually give them the attention they needed. Every Mobius after this feels like a Saturday morning cartoon villain that the heroes will beat in an episode or 2. They are just here to be obstacles. There are some exceptions such as D, J, X and Y, but honestly I feel even they were underdeveloped because they had to focus on so many other Mobius. But funnily enough, the 2 forced colonies which were Valdis and Junipers had the worst Mobius plot. The other side quests that were Hero and Ascension quest had mostly really good stuff in there. I really loved Console B's kicks or how different freeing the Flame Clock felt with every other colony. I especially like Colony Gamma side quests with Teach. And Teach himself is such an interesting character. They really did such an amazing job with the heroes in this game. My actual favorite hero, except for Nier, is Ashira. Her character in unison with Uni's is absolutely one of my highlights of this game. Character writing is really top of the game for the good guys here. Sadly, they completely missed the mark with the bad guys for me. We will get into that soon. I guess while we are here, let's talk about Uni and her starting to remember her past life. A super scary thought that she fights constantly. This not only leads to one of the best scenes with her tricking DJ and overcoming her fears, this is also why Ashira's character means so much to me. She also remembers her past, but even worse than Uni. Every time she comes close to her last term, the wound that was inflicted during her beheading and the pain just keeps growing, making her go insane before she can reach homecoming. She has been doing this for over 1000 years at this point, but can never escape the cycle. So she chooses to die in her own term for every new incarnation. A character that seemed insane when we first met her turned out to be one of the strongest written characters in the game. But she's not alone. Uni is now in the same boat, and she can convince Ashira to live on for now because they are all fighting for other people as well now. Also, Ashira is clearly Dunban's daughter, we all agree? Good. When Lance and crew meet Yoren again as Consul J is when Lance's arc really begins as well. Yoren and Lance had a big quarrel before Yoren saved Lance in a sacrificial way, so he never got to apologize. After meeting Yoren again and seemingly on the evil side, Lance has to relive those events and find the meaning behind everything that has happened. I think a lot of people, me included, didn't really care about Yoren as much as the game wanted us to. I still think his introduction as Mobius J was handled really well, and even if I saw it coming, it still was handled great. Especially with everything else going on at the time. The fight against Ishurt and everyone getting their second Ouroboros forms was a highlight for me. I think every chapter ending is a highlight, and I didn't even touch on it yet somehow, but good god, the choreography in this game is godlike. Man, I just noticed that I have way too much to say and I already skipped so many things that I wanted to say, but I want to keep this short. I will definitely think about making dedicated videos on everything. The next story section I want to talk about is infiltrating Keves Castle after witnessing the death of Ethel and Kamuravi. Mio delivers the most satisfying punch in Xenoblade history with an amazing speech as well. Man, I don't think I can even get into Mio's character in this video. It is a 1-hour discussion in itself. She only has so little time remaining, but is too kind to turn down any side adventure the party tries to do. Mio makes me feel bad for doing all the side quests before reaching Sword March after 200 hours of playtime. Infiltrating Calvis Castle is amazing, if not only for the banger alone. But as a longtime Xenoblade fan, having to fight Melia at the end was absolutely shocking. I thank the stars that we had to beat Melia first before we realized they are robots, because if it would have been Nia, I wouldn't be able to fight against her. Then we get introduced to N and M. N's DBZ entrance is absolutely fantastic, but we have to talk about the big twist here. Even before the game came out, everyone and their mom figured out that N was just evil Noah, and as soon as I saw a cat girl next to him, I knew it was Mio reincarnated as well. I don't think it's supposed to even be a big deal here, but it feels like they kept him secret for so long even though it was super obvious. Anyhow, now the best stretch of the game begins. I would even say the best mid-story stretch in any Xenoblade game. I talked about the open sea and how amazing the gameplay here was, but the story just kept pushing. We get introduced to the city and our party finds out about how life should be, a very emotional stretch of the game before we plan to rescue Gondor, who has the key to Nia's hidden place. The whole sequence here from the moment we go into the city is a 10 out of 10 to me. I know a lot of people didn't like the prison part, but I love it when games do these very unexpected sections of a game that make the chapter feel very unique. I really loved Senna's and Lance's scenes here as well, building on Senna's character arc to stop trying to be like the others and just be herself. I guess more interesting stuff could have happened during the prison, but it didn't take too long to get it done. And I mean, what comes after this is literally peak fiction. The fights against M and N are insane. The choreo, the music, the stakes. M's fight is especially great because they use Mio's flute play in the background to hint at who M really is. Also, her ability to take over a party member is so good and should have been more prevalent during the fight. It happened to me and I was absolutely amazed by it, but I saw some let's plays where it just never happened, or sometimes people didn't even realize it was happening. And I mean, N just nuked us. Absolutely fantastic. I've gotta say, I really didn't feel much about Senna and Lance trying to sacrifice themselves here. I never believed the game would go through with it, but even after that it isn't really addressed anymore. Well, talking about me thinking they wouldn't go through with this, Mio's homecoming broke me for almost an hour. The lead up in the prison cells, knowing how much Mio secretly feared reaching her homecoming and not being able to do anything about it. And then the My Noah speech before the last day absolutely destroyed me. But somehow, in my mind, I still didn't think they would go through with this. There has to be a way, right? Wait, Riku said just summon Lucky 7 at literally the last second. Thank you for mentioning it so late, by the way. Okay, she can be saved, right? And then it clicked. Even if we escape now, her time is almost gone. Still in disbelief, I waited for the MacGuffin to appear while she was walking the stairs up to her death, and then the music started swelling, and one of the dirtiest moves in gaming history happened. Anne freed Noah and gave him the flute to see Mio off. I had no time to rage or recover though, because 1 second later, Mio starts disappearing. I literally was speechless for several minutes. When the ending of the chapter hit, I just sat there staring at the screen. I literally mentally had to take a break. I stood up and had some nice dessert while coping with what just happened. I will never forget the experience this whole chapter gave me. And it's not even over. After almost 1 hour of me recovering from the shock, I continued to play and the peak just wouldn't stop. Noah's flashback explaining who N is and how it all happened was perfectly executed. The reveal that Mio switched bodies with M made so much sense when it finally clicked. N's rage was so understandable, especially after having watched his backstory now. And once again I have to shout out N's English voice actor Harry McIntyre for absolutely killing this scene. Then we unlock Longhair Mio and the true Lucky 7 doing the fight against N and Robot Nia. While playing, I could just feel the peak fiction running through my veins. And I even think the ending with blowing up the spot where the city was to Shania offing herself was such a good and shocking moment. I don't think I can praise enough how good all of this was executed. I said it once on Twitter and I still think it holds true. In my opinion, Xenoblade 1 has the best beginning stretch of all Xenoblade games, while Xenoblade 2 has the best ending stretch of them all. And I am not saying the rest of these games is not good. I am saying these stand out to me as the best parts. And Xenoblade 3 literally has the best middle portion I ever experienced. Sadly, it's not as in the middle as I thought. I could have sworn to you that this was the Prison Island section from Xenoblade 1 of this game. But it's far from it. Everything building up to this point felt like a build up to the absolute banger mid section, and I thought the train wouldn't stop until the end. Sadly, I think Xenoblade 3 fumbles the end massively for me. Everything after this point feels like an afterthought. We basically meet Nia, then go beat the final dungeon. Only 2 small areas remain, and before we even get to the final area, there's a fetch quest that makes you traverse through the entire continent again to find pieces. This doesn't even make sense canonically. It took them 2 months to get to Sword March, and even though Mio doesn't have to worry about her time anymore, I just can't imagine them traveling 6 to 10 months around Ionios before the end. I'm really sorry if this next part is gonna sound very negative. I want to get my real thoughts out here, so buckle up because I'm gonna mention stuff that you maybe disagree with, but is my honest opinion about the rest of the game. The upper A tier region is disappointing. For it to be one of the last new areas and only be so small, especially after Cadencia, did not sit well with me, but honestly this is a minor gripe. I think what's more important is that there should have been more areas after this, because a lot of plot points will be dissolved quickly and without fanfare now. One of the biggest things I hate about this game that many people will not agree with me are the deaths that seem meaningless. Okay, listen, Miyabi, Mwamba, Kamuravi and Ethel just coming back in their time we left them in is BS and destroys the meaning to their deaths before this. I can excuse Mwamba, Ethel and Kamuravi being back because they don't remember a thing, but Miyabi being back with her complete memories is actually terrible. We learned earlier that Miyabi meant a lot to Mio. It's because of Miyabi that Mio loved becoming an Overseer. Miyabi later sacrifices herself to save Mio and Senna. This is a huge step in Mio's development as a character and the reason she wants to continue moving forward and find her purpose. And now she's just back alive like nothing ever happened? This game has a lot of characters like that. This includes Yoran, Chris and Shania as well. Every important character that died during the adventure or in flashbacks just comes back. I know this is the setup of the world Zed created, but it seems like there are no repercussions for dying for these characters and they just come back aged up with their full memories intact. And we even had Mio, and yes, I praised like how much sense it made that Mio and M switched bodies, but even Mio survived. It just felt for me that deaths had no meaning in this game. Okay, meeting Nia is definitely one of the biggest highlights of this game, but it's not handled very well. The clouds keep appearing and the Drifting Soul remix had me literally in tears. When we finally meet Nia, she gets shot by D. He's officially cancelled now. But honestly, I didn't buy it for a second that Nia died. But just the nerve of this game to leave this plot point hanging throughout 2 major fights and the whole conclusion to Yoran's and Dirk's story was baffling. Even though I knew for sure that Nia was okay, I just wanted to move on and see her safe again. Meanwhile, I had to listen to Dirk telling his backstory that isn't even good. D was such a huge miss for me. The wild ride. He was hyped so much pre-release, and even after meeting him twice he was super interesting. Then he dropped his mask and his character just went to him being an insane man. And we never saw him again until this point where he dies. So much missed potential. A worse Mumka for sure. And because of this situation, even I as a Yoran defender didn't care much about his conclusion. In retrospect it is very nice, but maybe a bit too cliche and dragged out, but it is especially placed in the wrong time. Okay, can we finally meet Nia? God, I love her. The backstory was short but very important and interesting. Kinda cool to see her taking the role of the lore master in this game. Also, how did she become a queen? I don't know, Xenoblade 2 Definitive Edition with a Nier epilogue please? Her trying to be very formal but failing to do so will be the best gag forever. Sadly, we have to leave Nier and go start the big fetch quest, which leads us back to Nier, hello. But then we have to continue the fetch quest to finally build the ship to enter Origin. Meanwhile, we meet Chris again, who just turned evil to see us again. Honestly, would have done the same thing. But Chris was also not handled very well. This is a side story. Chris was so important to Noah and who he became. He was teased since the first scene in the game and brought up multiple times. And he's just there for a quick scrabble and a few passing words. Is it really just me who thinks there should have been a way more important story beat? And literally the same can be said about X and Y. They didn't get any proper focus even though they were important to Ionios and major cutscenes. You don't even fight X if you didn't do unique side quest first. After the fight, they just die without any cutscene. You can't tell me that this wasn't wasted potential. Okay, so Origin. I think the hate for it is actually misplaced here. Origin is an amazing final dungeon with an amazing theme. I just think that there was missing stuff leading up to the final dungeon. And we don't actually end on a high note because Zed is not a good villain either. We find out throughout the dungeon that he isn't even a real person. He's the manifestation of fear for the future from the people in Origin. Honestly, I don't even mind that. The problem with Zed is that he never does anything ever. We barely saw him in the game, but the party literally meets him for the first time here in Origin. He was just chilling in front of the theater waiting for us. I have no connection to you, nor do I care about you at all at this point. So introduce yourself. Why are you doing all this? Because it amuses me. Yeah, that put the nail in the coffin for me. So he is not just a manifestation of fear that acts neutral and just wants to preserve the now. No, he has ulterior motives. But he also is not a real person that went through hardship to come to this point to be evil. He is just evil because it amuses him. Great. I don't want to end this on a negative note, so let's talk about all the positives I haven't mentioned yet. Well-written Mobius exist. N and M are masterfully executed, especially N. And with Future Redeemed he becomes even better. I love that it's literally Noah that just had different life decisions that lead to this. It is the perfect contrast to the seemingly perfect Noah that only wants to do right things. I know this will sound crazy, but I can also relate to N in a few parts. Not the killing an entire city part though. His redemption at the end is also super well done. He absolutely carries the villain role from the entire game. Another great Mobius is actually Shania. I know everyone hates Shania, I hated her too during chapter 5 and 6, but I actually really love her side quest. Senna's side quest, I mean. We got to know her past and the reason she became like this. She is a parallel to Senna like N was for Noah. She had the same inferiority complex as Senna, but thanks to her circumstances, she became resentful and ended up as a villain. Her mother really is the worst though. She gets a great conclusion in the end as well. And then let's talk about the ending. After beating Zed and restarting Origin, Noah and the party had to make the decision. Do we want to continue the Endless now or move to the future? But even here, Noah hesitates because he doesn't know if his answer is the correct one. One of the biggest themes of this game is not to fear the uncertain future, and this is literally what the game leaves us with. After the party splits apart in this absolutely heartbreaking scene, we left with one final cutscene. Origin reset everything back to before Ionios happened. Every person, every location and every memory is reset like nothing ever happened. But then we hear a familiar tune again, the Agnian Offsing tune. The worlds are reset but are combined into a single planet, and Noah seems to remember this tune. What happens afterwards? We don't know. It's uncertain, but we can imagine the possibilities. So look up, face forward towards your chosen horizon, and just walk on. This video became way longer than I wanted it to be and was also never planned to be this in depth in the first place. I just wanted to share my experience with this beautiful game on its 1-year anniversary. I had a lot of criticisms to share here, but it was out of love. Believe me when I say that I love this game and this trilogy to death. I am so happy this game exists and that we all got to play it. We live in the best timeline, and the Xenoblade future just seems brighter and brighter by the day. Happy anniversary once again. I definitely want to revisit characters and other themes of this game and go fully in depth one day. So if you want to see that, definitely stay tuned and subscribe. Do it for Nia.